So I decided to do a little bit of maintenance on my Pro XP. This thing's got about 2,000 miles on it, and I have not turned a wrench on it, not even so much as a belt. So this past weekend I was at a racing event and I realized that my brakes were noisy, and that's why. So time to put some pads on it. And I thought, well, I've got one of these things. I'll grease the wheel bearings too. So when I took the wheel off to put the brake pads on, and then proceeded to, on the other side, zip this axle nut off, it is seized. So the good news is I haven't had to turn a wrench on this machine the whole time I've owned it. The bad news is I haven't turned a wrench on this machine the whole time I've owned it. So let's see how this goes. Oh boy. I had to do the same thing on the other side. So I got it out. This hub is supposed to pull off by hand. And you gotta be careful not to go too far. You don't want to push your axle right into your transmission. Wow. Now I gotta see if I can separate the bearing. So I end up having to pull the hub off. I have to clean this teeth up. This will be fine. Clean up in there. Lots of grease. So we'll actually pull apart by hand like it's supposed to. Meanwhile, I have to press this apart. Bearing seems fine, but I'll grease it all up. Press this out of the bearing and hope that it doesn't break this off, because I've had that happen before. So we'll see. Alright, put it apart. I had to use my heavy duty press to make this thing move. But I got it out. I'll clean this up, maybe a few new parts. Every bit of this is my own fault for not doing a little bit better maintenance. We'll see how it looks when I get it back together. I may have ruined this bearing now, but if you look at this race and the ball bearings inside, you can see it's actually still good if I didn't separate it, which isn't bad for 2,000 miles of harsh driving, jumping. If you see any of my other videos, you'll see I do not drive this thing easy. And there we have it. It's all done. I just need to torque the axle nut nice and tight. No play in it. It's all good, greased, and it'll actually pull apart with my hands now like it should. New brake pads, some new parts, and I guess that goes to show what you should do with maintenance. Now I gotta move on to the front, do the same thing up here. Get these wheels off, 30s back on, probably some new brake pads. Hopefully better luck with getting them hubs apart. So I zipped the caliper off. The pads aren't nearly as bad as the rear, but I'll put new ones on anyway. And the axle nut, moment of truth. Oh yeah. See, that's how it's supposed to be. And then this should just pull off. I only got one hand, but this should pull off with two hands. Just a little bit of wiggling. Came right off like it should. And this looks much better. And this wheel bearing had no play or anything in it, so I'm going to grease her up. This is going to go much smoother than the rear did, and maybe I'll actually get out of here today. So somehow, I got the wrong pads for the front of this, but they were right for the rear. So thankfully these would still have a little bit of meat left on them, so we're going to leave them on there, and I'll get the new ones loaded up. No big deal. I don't need it today anyways. Get this thing back together, and of course that torqued as well.